and make sure.
Yeah, now make sure I'm in there.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. And you were fine when I checked.
Okay.
All right. All right, folks, we're here at the Free Your Mind Conference, as you know, and I have the benefit of getting to meet Lenon Honor in person. I love Lenon Honor.
I love
do.
you too, bro.
We've been able to talk on air several times, and I've always had a blast speaking with Lenon when he's been on my show and as a guest on his show. And we learn a lot, both my wife and I, being a new family from Lenon and all his wisdom. And I'm sorry I didn't get to meet all the kids, but that would have been a logistical,
that's been a challenge.
That would have been a challenge, but one of these days, and they're definitely on the unschooling right path for all this free your mind information.
Absolutely.
And it'll be part of what I talk about with my talk, getting into education and as opposed to indoctrination, and promoting that natural curiosity that we all have as children, that we're taken away from because the establishment tells us we have to regurgitate what they tell us and all that fun brainwash. But Lenon, what's been up with you? What's the latest and greatest?
Well, I'm here at the Free Your Mind Conference, and I've met so many wonderful people. Of course, Bob. I'm here. I'll be doing a presentation on Saturday on my new book, which is titled The 911 Fear-Based Mind Control Program. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm just thankful even to be out here. We got people like Bob here, Freeman Fly, Sonia Barrett. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and just to be part of it is absolutely amazing.
So there's a lot of fear going on with the Boston thing lately,
Yes.
And you see that as kind of parallel to the trauma-based mind control we saw with events like 9/11. Sandy Hook now is a big one,
Yes.
and others.
Absolutely. This is part of what I call mass media cyclical programming. And we're now in the current cycle, which is a 4-week cycle leading up to May 2nd of any given year. You get an infusion of fear-based stories. After May 2nd, it begins to die down, and then it begins to pick itself up within the 6 weeks leading into September 11th. And then when you get to September 11th, it's that all-time frenzy, and then it dies out again. And this is to perpetuate fear. And of course, fear creates the externalization of power, and the externalization of power is a protocol for control. And if you want to say mind control, absolutely mind control. So part of my talk on Saturday, I will be addressing the cyclical programming, and the bombings in Boston fits perfectly within that scope.
It's unfortunate that just before we come to this event, we had another seemingly obvious false flag attack. And I wonder sometimes about these events. We were talking about this a little bit inside. Do the powers that shouldn't be make it so painfully obvious that it's contrary to what the official story is from the officials? Do you think they do this by design? Do you think they want to create that dichotomy, that division amongst us?
Yes, in my book I talk about the Great Divide. And not only do you traumatize people, but then you divide the people amongst themselves.
Right.
So now you're basically dealing with traumatized people who are at odds with each other. That's a problem. Okay, the trauma is a problem in and of itself, but now you traumatize people and you divide them based upon the trauma, and then now they conflict with each other. Well, that's another protocol for mind control: divide and conquer. That's precisely what's happening. Yes, absolutely.
And we see that all over the place, even amongst the so-called alternative media or alternative community, whatever that is or isn't. So we get caught up in our different compartmentalized parts of the so-called movement. And I see this divide and conquer as only feeding into the agenda. What's the agenda? Does this come down to good and evil, Lenon?
Well, it could. The way I look at it is that, you used the term the powers that shouldn't be.
Right.
Right.
Because we shouldn't power them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right.
Who are they're not, and we call them elites.
There's
and
all
we give
kinds of
them
terms.
all these names, but
the Illuminati.
They're just some schmucks that.
The point.
Okay.
The point that I wanted to make was that it's about maintaining control.
Right.
And in order to maintain control, you have to maintain people in a subservient position. And the way that you do that is to have them in a state of perpetual fear, which causes the externalization of power. In the book, I talk about this 4-stage process, and one is trauma. So you issue trauma-based programming. That could be something like September 11, 2001. That can be something like the Sandy Hook shooting. That can be the sinking of the Titanic. But whatever the traumatic event is, you always trigger that trauma some way, somehow. That's what media does. Through the trauma, it creates fear. So even if the event took place long time ago, you can still incite the levels of fear that people felt on September 11th simply by issuing programming. And again, to maintain control, you have to traumatize people, have them in a state of fear. Once you're in a state of fear, they always externalize power. There we go again. Once the externalization of power takes place, now you have people control. Well, from my vantage point, it's about maintaining control, and fear is the main tool that is being used to control people.
And then we see the little subliminals. You talk about the subliminal messages and TV and all these things. They're contained within the various programs, and they call it programming for a reason, of course. And it's just this accumulation of all this propaganda, for lack of a better term, that we face. You've done a great job exposing this with your work. Now, although you're very much aware of all this madness, you're also someone who is trying to bring back the idea of family that many of us have been taken away from with this sort of programming that they give us. And you look at media, and there's constant subliminals to degrade the family structure. What is family to you, Len? And I know it's a lot, and how does this fit into your work, the idea of family and how important it is?
Yeah, so when we talk about fear and maintaining control, it's about what family does, if it's done properly, is it dissipates fear and it empowers people. In other words, you empower your children, and now you have a new generation who will be empowered. They won't succumb to the fear, therefore they won't maintain themselves in a subservient position within this controlled network. A lot of the propaganda we get is designed to destabilize family units. And I'm going to say this, like, we focusing on all these other secret societies and all have all this power. The greatest secret society is the family institution. And the most powerful secret society that has influence over future generations is the family institution. So if you want to maintain control over the general population, you degrade the family institution, because that is where the source of power truly resides. And can you imagine if I was, let's say I was born and Bob was my father, where would I be today? You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? I know you're looking like, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or what if I was born and I was my own father, and I raised myself up in an atmosphere where, and it wasn't about fear and all the fear-based mind control programming and all the trauma-based programming, etc., all the media manipulation, where would I be today? And that's what I mean by the family functions as the preeminent means to which we can empower future generations. And I should also say that you have your family. Well, your child is blessed because you're the father of that child.
Well, but here's the thing, my family, although they were very loving and caring, they're brainwashed. And I know they're probably not watching.
Oh, don't worry about it.
They're not watching this. Mom, Dad, you're not watching this anyways. But the point is, they were stuck within that box. And somehow I broke free. Somehow I was able to have that paradigm shift. Your father, you talk about your relationship with him, and it was never really a great one at times. But here you are, one of the most influential fathers in my life, as a father figure and somebody that influences me. So I wonder sometimes if, and okay, so now we're giving our children a better life than what we had. And that's kind of what parents do. They try to provide a better, generation for their own children than what they had. But, I wonder sometimes if I rebelled from my father, you rebelled from your father, and now we are conscious beings. Are our children going to become young Republicans that join the Skull and Bones in Yale? I mean, are they going to...
I hope not.
Well, I hope not too.
Well, the thing is, oftentimes, and our parents, they did the best they could. My father, he was a drug addict, alcoholic, on crack, all this kind of stuff, absentee father. But still, I know that he did the best that he could based upon his life experience. And we all do that.
Right.
But the way I look at it is that if you raise your children in love and without fear, and you place your children as being the most important thing, they will love you back fully. And see, that rebellion thing, oftentimes we rebel because there was trauma. We rebel because there was something that wasn't explained to us. We rebel because we were abused. But I'll tell you all that in the absence of that, when you're living in an experience as a child of pure love and your parents just love you fully and accept you fully, and of course they're operating with a level of consciousness, if you will, the need to rebel is not necessary, because you recognize that to rebel, you would be rebelling against love as opposed to rebelling against being traumatized or being mistreated by your parents. So I think that's the dynamic. There's the rebellion for me was because I wanted to be something greater than my father.
Right.
That was the rebellion.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and here we are rebelling from fear.
Yes,
the opposite, and providing the love, and that's very important. Unconditional love and talking about love. that might sound Pollyannish and hippy-dippy, but neither of us are, well, maybe I am. You get the point. So it's all about love, folks. Love is the answer. The children are our future, and any other cliche
That's right.
commentary that you can come. Lenon, it's great to see you, man.
You too,
Thanks
bro.
so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, folks, we'll continue at the conference here in the Free Mind Conference. I'll be talking with Freeman, I'm sure, at some point, Fritz Springmeier, Kathy O'Brien, and many others. All right, cool. That was
Excellent, bro.
perfect.
Cool.
We'll see how many minutes we got there. Exactly 10 minutes.